I'm chair of the Immigration and Deportation Committee and been that for about 5 years. We started with a tour of Tijuana for the delegates for the California Convention, which was held here in San Diego. We spent about a year studying the issue and finding good speakers and places to go in Tijuana, and ended up having Ev Mead from Transporter Institute be the guy who talked about immigration for about 6 hours on the bus. So we had a whole bunch of people there. And then we formed a committee afterward to continue our work in immigration and develop this mission statement to be informed and educate members and the public about issues affecting immigration and deportation, and to advocate for improvement as well as help some of those in need. Jenny Avena is going to talk about other tours we've done.
Hi, my name is Jenny Avena. I've been a member for about 4.5 years now. And one of the first committees I was interested in was the Immigration Committee. I'm an attorney and I've done some pro bono work in the immigration area. So that was really interesting to me. And then of course, the last 4 years have just really drove home how important the issues of immigration are. They've sort of come to the forefront. As Beryl was saying, we were able to take a couple of bus tours down to Tijuana to help members and others understand the issues a little bit better. This is a picture from our 2018 bus tour. And that one we focused on the issues of deportation of people that were being returned to Mexico from the United States. And, you know, as we're all aware, we're in a very unique spot here at the largest land border crossing in the world, and right where people get funneled back into Mexico when they're deported. You know, I don't know where everybody lives, but 20 minutes from my house, this is happening. So, you know, a lot of people in this area aren't aware of what's going on down there. And this bus tour was really an opportunity to do that. So we stopped at several shelters that they're either formal shelters or informal shelters. You know, the need is just so great there that the Mexican government is not able or possibly willing to make all the resources available that people that have been deported to that area need. A lot of people that get deported stay in that area because they have family in the United States, they're hoping to be able to return, or maybe they have nowhere else to go. So there is a lot of need there. We got to see some of the shelters and hear from some of the people that had been deported, you know, what their stories were, what was going on. And it can be really difficult to find good information about what's happening on the ground. So this was a great opportunity to do that. And the picture here is at Friendship Park, which I think another one of our committee members is going to talk about a little bit later. But this was a great opportunity to get to know what's happening and then bring that back to our own communities to spread the word and get good, reliable information out there. Go ahead, Beryl. Whoop. Back one, there we go. And then we also had the opportunity to take some information to other league members across the state and across the country during the 2016, and that should actually say 2017 convention. That was my bad. But so in 2016, we held a caucus. We were able to share what's going on at the border with other leagues in California. And, you know, there was a lot of interest because things were just really, you know, heating up with the new administration, and people were very interested in what was going on, you know, kind of everyday people. I mean, people at the border have been talking about this for years and what's been going on, but we were able to give good information to people. So again, they could share with their communities. And originally we were the only immigration committee that I'm aware of a local league. I believe there's a couple more in California now. And then in 2017, we took a little bit of a different tactic. And instead of doing a caucus and sort of trying to compete with all the other meetings that were going on with different issues at the national convention, we brought a flyer that explained what was going on with our deported veterans. And we brought, I think, about 1,000 flyers to that convention and left with none, and maybe some of them ended up in the trash or on a table, but I got a lot of comments from people about how they had no idea that this was going on or this was an issue. This was something that our country did. So again, it was kind of like having a built-in audience where we could get some information out there to increase our impact and really amplify what was going on in the area. So just moving forward, I think that's a really important thing to think about. Immigration is really going to be a hot topic again coming up in the next few months as we look at different proposals on the national level. And the League is a great place to get good, reliable information so you can share that in your communities, and hopefully we can have a real conversation about what needs to happen at the federal level.
Thank you, Jenny.
Sure.
The committee has taken other tours too. We've been to the Otay Mesa Detention Center a couple times, the Border Patrol twice also, and they take you in their vehicles between the fences. We drive, I don't know, 10, 15 miles between the fences. And we went to the Rapid Response Shelter in San Diego when that was very busy and maybe busy again real soon. And we also saw the truck inspections. When the trucks come across the border, they have dogs that sniff out for drugs, and they have inspections of the trucks. So the Border Patrol also does that, or Customs and Border Patrol. This group is in front of the US deported veterans, and I'll talk about that a little later. We're back at Friendship Park. On the left is Pat Nixon. She opened the park about 49 and a half years ago. And she's on the Mexican side. It's right next to the bull ring, so you can see that there on the right side. You can see how the fence was back there. And then the colored picture is the current fence on the Mexican side. And there's another fence on the US side. It used to be, before COVID, that on the weekends, the Border Patrol would open the US fence and let a limited number of families communicate with each other through one fence. And now that's all closed. They also tend to close it when it's muddy, so we'll see. We're the Friends of Friendship Park is trying to get that reopened. Okay, Jane is here. Jane Andrews is here to talk about the parties we've sponsored.
Yeah, I'm a very new participant in the Immigration Committee, but my daughter is a professor at UCSD who runs their Mexican migration field project. So even though I've just recently moved to San Diego, this has been part of my life for the last 7 years. So, but one of the things about Beryl's program, or the League, was a party in a shelter for women and children in Tijuana this past, a year ago, fall. But the other thing is, I just have to say about Beryl's program is the people, the connections that she has with people on both sides of the border, the connection with people who really are on the ground. I think that makes it so personal. And I feel that, I just feel very proud of that. The League does policy, but this is a more personal side of it all. And, there are just innumerable people who she knows who are really working at the border. And so this is an example of the gathering at the shelter.
You can see the tents in the back left. Each family gets a tent in this building, and there are rooms that are wall-to-wall tents. Okay, Jane, you're going to talk about this.
Okay,
All right, I will.
I'm
if
going
you
to have to
want.
let you talk about this one. 'cause
Okay.
I wasn't there.
All right, so each Thanksgiving time, we have helped support the Thanksgiving dinner
That's
that Maria Galetta and her agency sets up. Maria's the second one from the left, and Robert Vivar from the Deported Veterans Group, he helps her too. This year they had to do a buffet. Usually they do a sit down, and they feed about 100 deported people who are missing Thanksgiving dinner because they're in Tijuana. So this is the buffet they had this year, and we had several people contribute to the cost of it.
And Maria Gaeta is somebody who is at the border almost every day, just seeing who's coming across, responding to the needs. And she has a space right on the border, on the Tijuana side of the border for her Madres y Familias. And she has come to some of the lead meetings and just, again, been a wonderful connection.
Okay, after one of the parties, we met for dinner before we stood in line to cross the border. So this is what that is. But what I really wanted to tell you is that for the Lunch with League, we have provided panelists to talk about immigration a few times. And they come from agencies that are working with asylum seekers, refugees, and people who've been deported. This is very sensitive, I'm sorry. All right, here's a child looking through the fence at Friendship Park. You can see the little holes that you can touch fingers with. But what I wanted to tell you is that one Saturday, on a Hot Topic Saturday, we had 7 discussions going about various aspects of immigration and trying to come up with some, practical solutions to them. So that was a very worthwhile meeting we had a couple of years ago. And then we also set up a SIPS and civility meeting. We had over 200 people and 18 tables, each with a discussion leader. It was held in the 9th floor of the Central Library. And we had guided questions for each table discussion. And then partway through the meeting, everybody shifts around. So that was a very worthwhile meeting. We reached out to a lot of people there. Sorry, this slide is very sensitive. The LWVUS has the position on immigration. We don't have one locally. And so they are the ones who have to take the action. We have been meeting with members of Congress or their staff about every 15 months and talking about the issues that concern us. Oh, geez. And we also have testified at City Council and the Board of Supervisors regarding public charge, SB 54, which is the Values Act, and DACA. There's the Board of Supervisors, has made some big changes. We have new members on the board, so hopefully the sheriff won't be able to share his data with ICE anymore. And we're also working on getting them to reverse their position supporting sanctuary cities. The couple on the right are the co-founders of the United U.S. Deported Veterans Group in Tijuana. And they report at each of our meetings. We have monthly meetings. And then they help us when we come to Tijuana. They have lots of good connections, and they transport us around some. And so we're kind of a group. And then we help them with their issues and activities, including talking to members of Congress and the legislature. Jenny Avena went down to train some of their volunteers to register to vote before the 2020 election, because registration for Americans down in a foreign country is quite different from here. It's much more complicated. So she got everybody trained to go out and register people, and then we had COVID, and that was the end of that game. Here's a screenshot of our committee in January. We meet on the second Thursday of the month at 9 a.m. And we usually have a speaker from some agency. Once the border was closed, all these activities back and forth across the border had to stop for our committee. And the one thing that we were able to do was to have volunteers and friends of the league, some people weren't even league members, made thousands of masks. We took over 1,000 masks down to Robert. Janie Wardlow has a house down in Tijuana, so she's a great conveyance across the border, even during COVID. And so we got the masks to Robert, and Robert took them to the shelters. It's especially hard to get masks for children, so many of them were children's size. They're just, between 50 and 200 people living in a shelter. There's no way they can spread out. And so this was a very important project. Okay, Dana's here to talk about state legislation.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Beryl. Beryl talked about how the League of Women Voters United States is really involved in, obviously, the federal government and laws dealing with deportation and immigration. So the state, as you know, the state of California doesn't have laws regarding immigration and deportation, but what they've done is they have passed laws previously just to, protect the human rights of our immigrants and refugees and undocumented Californians, to make sure they're getting their basic needs met. And so another role of the committee is that they do talk about and discuss state legislation. And also, and Beryl, I'm not sure, have you had a chance to meet with some of the state legislators or their staff yet?
Well, the plan was to meet with them last April, and that didn't work. So we are planning to meet with them really for the first time this year. But in the legislative interviews, there's one of the 4 or 5 questions can be provided by the local league. And twice now it's been on immigration, including this year.
Right. Yeah, and then my volunteer work for the California League is on their advocacy team. I review and evaluate legislation in regards to our immigrant community and prepare recommendations for the California League, whether to oppose or support bills. And so what I have found is, as I get into the legislative session and the bills start to be introduced, I will go to the committee and discuss with them the bills that have been introduced, and they provide me input. And it is just extremely valuable to have this committee on immigration and deportation, because these are the folks that are like boots on the ground. I'm more of the policy wonk, but they're really in the trenches. And so it's just so helpful to have them as a sounding board, because the California League has a couple years ago or so gotten more involved in state legislation associated with immigration. And so that's why they had asked me when I volunteered to take on that subject. And so I found it fascinating. And I think that kind of so I think, again, the committee plays a really important role in influencing what the California League takes, what kind of positions they take. Some of the bills we're looking at coming up is providing full scope Medi-Cal coverage to all undocumented Californians. That's one bill. There's another bill looking at forming a commission on human rights that would deal with our immigrant and refugee population. So there's a lot going on there. And then before I wrap up, I want to highlight, as you know, that this is State Senator Toni Atkins, who is from San Diego, and actually I'm one of her constituents. And I'm really proud to have her on there because the ACLU, California Action, I think it's called, or just ACLU California, actually gave her 100% as far as a score on how she voted on bills related to our immigrant community. So I think we're proud to have her up there in Sacramento. So thanks, Beryl. Is there anything else you want me to talk about?
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So we're also hoping that the new mayor will reach out to improve border crossing and sewage spills and services to asylum seekers. He's appointed 2 staff with experience in these areas. So we're giving them a little time, but we'll invite them to our meeting too. But the important thing about the Immigration and Deportation Committee is the friends we make across the border. And so we all love to do this work. We find extra volunteers when we need them. And we appreciate your interest in it. We'd love to have you join the committee. Just let one of us know and I'll get you on the email list. But thank you very much for attending. Jane wants to follow up with a little discussion on your interests, concerns, and questions.
Well, I wanted to say a couple of things. First, I'm very interested in what's on everybody's minds, and I just want to say there are no dumb questions. It's, everybody's a learner here, but one of the things that's particularly striking is how much has changed in the last month with the Biden administration. And I do want to report that the National League has written some, what I think are very good letters to the Biden administration and the congressional leadership about essential workers getting treated properly, about a path to citizenship, DACA, and very much, behind what changes are being made. There's a lot that has yet to happen, but in many ways it is a very exciting time, or not exciting because, it's sort of, who knows how it's all going to go, but there's some hope. And I think there are changes going on with changes in asylum regulations. Some people are, coming across the border, staying in quarantine in hotels that the Jewish Family Service is running. There's just a lot changing right at the moment. So come to our meetings because the people Beryl gets really know what's going on. So any rate, I really want to open up. Please ask some questions, things you'd like to know more about.
Things you think we should be concentrating on? Right. Wendy, did you raise your hand?
Rochelle had her hand up.
Serves you right for scratching your head. Yeah.
I really am. Thank you for this presentation. I've learned so much about immigration and deportation. Just really want to join the committee, but I don't want to overcommit myself. But the part that stood out to me is that people can serve in the military and still be deported. So my question for the committee is: was this prior to 2017 with President Trump's administration, or is this something new? Is it new that this is happening, that they can be deported if they've served the country? And do you think that the Biden administration will change that kind of law or policy?
Well, no, it's not new. It's been going on for many, many years. In fact, I would say there have been less deportations of veterans. under Trump, but I'm only guessing that. And the problem is that you could be deported for a misdemeanor,
Right.
and a misdemeanor could be DUI or driving without a driver's license or having a gun that's not registered or that kind of thing. A lot of these veterans come back with PTSD and they're not really 100% in control of their actions. And we have tried to get kind of like drug courts, PTSD courts, that where you would work to treat the patient rather than deport him or jail him or something like that. So we really have to change the way we treat people who are not totally back to civilian life.
And I would add that Robert Vivar, who's the deported veteran advocate that works with the committee, keeps us posted about legislation in Washington around this. And there's legislation that is, to change so that it isn't just for a misdemeanor, a DUI or something, you don't get deported. But, one other thing that absolutely shocked me is that you can serve in the military, and if you get deported, that's fine. But if you die, you can come back and have a military funeral. And there just is some incredible hypocrisy, but I'm certainly hopeful that the Biden administration will do some things. And, but, some of it is, getting that legislation out there, getting it passed. And it does seem that the league, the US League is paying quite a lot of attention to this topic right now.
Anybody else? Oh yeah, Nadita.
So I have a question about this deportation. So are these people undocumented that are being deported, or are they permanent, what do you call, status?
Yeah, they're permanent residents. They have green cards in order
Right.
to serve in the military, but they're not citizens.
Right, but can they be deported?
Yes,
Yeah.
and they are. There are hundreds of them.
Wow.
Yeah, Ruth.
Well, I have two questions. I mean, aren't a lot of the times aren't people holding green cards promised citizenship if they serve in the military?
Right.
That isn't always followed through.
Right. Part of in the past, part of the problem was they didn't, the people in the military didn't tell the administration where they were stationed and where they should get their mail. Part of it was people didn't know what to do next, kind of thing. But part of it was also the Department of Defense not following up completely. It's supposed to be better now. I don't know if it really is. Before we run out of time, I just wanted to tell you that question about DACA, you have to have been physically present in the United States on June 15, 2012. And you cannot travel overseas, including Mexico, from the time you entered the US to the time you apply for DACA, or even after you apply for DACA, they're not allowed to travel. So that's why kids who are coming in now cannot be part of DACA.
And that was 8.5 years ago. So
Yeah.
any child under the age of 8 would obviously not be eligible, right?
Right. They have to be under the age of 31 to apply for DACA too. Okay. Oh, yes, Rochelle. Did you have your hand up? Oh, sorry. Okay, I think that's about it. And we'd love to have you join us. I can put my email in the chat.
Yeah, I certainly recommend, the people who come who are real activists in the South Bay area are incredible people. And, I've just learned so much from participating.
Can I
And
also just,
Rochelle, oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say, because I know I hear the concerns about overcommitting yourself, and that is definitely a danger in the league because we have so much great stuff going on. But you are definitely welcome to come to a committee meeting and, just hear the
Oh, yeah.
speaker, take in the information, and not commit yourself to, a year-long study or anything like that. So just know that.
The other thing is.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I like to have extensive notes for meetings. So the notes are quite detailed. And we have like 100 people who are on my committee list. As you saw, we get 12 to 15 people at a meeting. So all the rest of them are reading the notes, and that's fine. The more you learn about immigration, the better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Beryl, and your team. That was a nice and informative presentation. And everybody who is interested in participating and joining Beryl, feel free to just pop in. She put her email in the chat if you had any questions that you want to follow up on in the future. As Kim demonstrated earlier, go to our website if you want to go to one of the committee meetings, immigration and deportation, as well as any of the other ones. They are on their website as well and open to you to join by just clicking on the site and going to the link. So I want to thank you all for your time tonight and your interest in our organization in general and the Immigration and Deportation Committee in particular. And again, follow up with Beryl if you have any questions, join her meetings and join any of the other committee meetings as well to get a better sense of what we do and the work that we're involved in and engage yourself as well. So with that, have a very nice rest of your evening and a good rest of your week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all.